Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast, Field Goals and Forecast. I'm, of course, your host, Ryan Addy, and I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, as always, Mr. James Derrick. We've got a good episode in store for you. We are currently, at the time of recording this is, Tuesday at 3 p.m., so the trade deadline is in an hour.
Yes.
We'll be running this entire show through the trade deadline, essentially. Mm-hmm. So we'll try to keep you updated if anything happens. But as for now, we have some news around the league, game recaps, of course, our fantasy, and then we'll go into quick picks. And we're going to do some mid-season power rankings and awards, very early awards, but we'll be giving out some awards today. So, but let's start with some news around the league. Obviously, like I said before, it is the trade deadline, so we're going to have a lot of trades to talk about. Marshon Lattimore, that's the big one. That's the big one from today so far. Marshon Lattimore and a fifth to the Commanders for a third-round pick.
Yeah. Commanders needed it. They're going to need some reinforcements back there. And, I saw on social media over the last few days kind of some funny posts about players saying they wouldn't mind being traded to the Commanders.
Yeah,
I think that might
crazy.
Be the first time I've ever seen anything like that in real life or just in general. It's kind of just a fun time to be around because this is something that I would have never seen coming in the off season. They say trade deadline, Commanders are going to trade for Marshon Lattimore.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Okay.
And obviously the Saints started out 2-0, one of probably the best team in the league at the time, and now they've really taken a huge step back. We'll get into their head coach debacle later, but let's continue with some trade news. Mike Williams and Preston Smith to the Steelers. They got a fifth from the Jets, and as of now, I couldn't find what they got for Preston Smith, but Packers, obviously outside linebacker Preston Smith, he's been very good for a very long time, but he's moving to the Steelers. Mike Williams, same thing, Clemson guy, was very good with the Chargers and just not a good fit for the Jets, I suppose.
Yeah. He's also just been a guy who's dealt with injuries almost every year of his career, it seems. I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure remembering back over a couple years I've had him on fantasy teams, and he's just been someone who I'm always plugging in for.
Yeah, tough scene, really.
Got paper ankles, something like that. But no, when he plays, he can provide a good spark. He's a great deep threat. He can go up and get a lot of balls that I'd say half wide receivers can't, at least. So you can see why that is a good addition for the Steelers.
And they needed another receiver to complement George Pickens. Sorry, and I think this will be their guy. This is kind of like a physical, deep threat kind of guy where George Pickens just outrun him, get behind him, make crazy catches. One of the most talented receivers in the league for sure, but good to add another receiver on their roster.
You know what? Just now that I think about it, Mike Williams, the fit is really good when you think about how soft and how high Russell Wilson can throw those deep balls. Mm-hmm. Now they have two receivers on that roster who can really just come down with some 50-50s. So really good addition, I think.
And I think this is probably the worst trade from the deadline so far. I mean, the Cowboys give up a fourth for Jonathan Mingo, a fourth-round pick.
I just don't understand. I mean, we saw Diggs and Devontae Adams get traded for
way less. Yeah.
I mean, what second and third round picks there, respectively?
Even Mike Williams was a fifth. You would take Mike Williams over Jonathan Mingo every day, right?
I think yes, but I think maybe part of this is just that Jonathan Mingo's a young guy.
Yeah.
He'll be around for a while. Not paying him much either. Can't be.
No.
So maybe that's part of it, but for a fourth is pretty insane to think that the Cowboys are giving that up. And that's not like some kind of trade that's just going to come in and fix the team.
No. I don't think this is really going to do much for them at all. They desperately needed defense. They desperately needed a run stopper. And Jerry Jones, of course, just doesn't want to do that. I don't know. Obviously, Jonathan Mingo, a former second-round pick, so it's a good return on value pretty much. Mingo has had one reception for 1 yard in the past 3 games. And he's been in all of them.
I don't know what to say. I don't know what else to say. I think he was going to get a chance in that offense in Carolina eventually.
Yeah.
But great for Carolina. I guess, you spend a second to get Mingo, but you realize pretty soon he's not gonna get his opportunities as early as you want him to in order for him to develop. And so they do get a fourth back for that,
Do they go into rebuild mode, Carolina? I know you've been in rebuild mode for the past 10 years since Cam Newton's left, but do you is this part of it? Is this part of the rebuild mode? Just get as many picks as you can, get some return on value.
This kind of seems like the beginning of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It definitely seems like they're brewing something there. I just feel bad for Panthers fans. I feel bad for Bryce Young. Not this week, though. We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. But anyway, Zadarius Smith, another big name getting moved to the Lions. Another huge piece added to this juggernaut of a team right now. And they got him for a fifth.
So just go from the last trade that we just talked about, where Jonathan Mingo goes to the Cowboys for a 4th-round pick, and then you move up to Zadarius Smith to the Lions for a 5th.
Unbelievable! It's actually unbelievable.
Let's compare and contrast the impact that's going to have on the teams that they traded for.
And they desperately needed an edge rusher, outside linebacker kind of guy. Zadarius Smith was very good with the Packers. He was very good with the Ravens. Kind of slowed down on a pretty dying Browns team right now, but I think this is a very good fit for him here with the Lions. And again, just making good great, right? You take a very good Lions defense and you just it's like iron sharpening iron. I can't think of a better fit for him, honestly.
Another playmaking guy to plug in where, you lost Aiden Hutchinson, and we'll get to Defensive Player of the Year later, but Aiden Hutchinson, if he doesn't go down,
probably the front runner, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wonder if they still do this, even if he is there. I mean, imagine.
That's a good point.
Imagine what that could have been with him and Zadarius Smith. But I think a really good trade, iron sharpening iron.
Yeah.
So,
and again, Browns are thinking about going into rebuild mode right now, so getting any picks they can, probably beneficial for them. The last trade so far that I have here, and this is kind of going under the radar a little bit, Khalil Herbert to the Bengals for a 7th-round pick. They're basically trading away nothing to get him. And, the Bengals, their run game hasn't been great. And Zach Moss is going to be out for an extended period of time now. And so you're looking to get someone back. And when Khalil Herbert played, he was pretty good.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think I can really remember a time where Khalil Herbert played for a super great football team. I think there may have been one team for the Bears that he played kind of early on that made the playoffs, if I'm even remembering correctly. Maybe not.
No, I don't know. Khalil Herbert, he was a late round pick 2 years ago, I want to say, and he started a couple of games. Who was he behind, man? I can't think. But, he was behind David Montgomery.
That's right.
Yeah, so when David Montgomery went out, Khalil Herbert came in, started playing pretty well. And he actually did, again, like I said, he did play well, just getting overshined. Roshan Johnson is there. Obviously, DeAndre Swift is there. He doesn't really have a fit in that offense. Bengals, hopefully, can turn his career around. He seems pretty happy to be there. I like it.
Yeah, it kind of seems like the perfect plug-in for Zach Moss.
Yes.
I think, they're getting back what they lost, and they're only spending a 7th-round pick to get it, so keeps their some steadiness in the backfield, because Zach Moss is going to miss a lot of time, if not the season, if I'm correct.
I want to say at least, they put him on IR, so at least 4 weeks, right? Mm-hmm. And, there's not much left in the season. We're halfway through. So where do you put him?
Yeah, and now you're not at the point where you're going to wait for him to come back and rehab and all that, and then you're going to take Khalil Herbert and put him down in the depth chart, right?
Right. And Chase Brown has been good, but not great. And I think he just needs a few more years, and they're going to look to fix, and hopefully this is their fix. But if not, they'll look to fix in the offseason for sure because his running back group hasn't been great. Did you get a notification?
No, nothing yet. Just,
okay.
Ian Rappaport, just some rumors, nothing.
All right. I'm here for it. Anyway, let's move on to some real news here. Christian McCaffrey, he's coming back to practice.
He's practicing.
He's finally practicing. It took him half of the season, but he made it. I like it. I hope he comes back very strong. What else can I really say? This is at a point where they need him.
Yeah, no, for sure. This team has been, hampered by injuries all year, and now they get their biggest star back. And
yeah.
He transforms that offense. The way he can run the ball and the way he can be a pass catcher out of the backfield. I would be a little interested to see if he gets eased into this or if he's just ready to go straight out the cannon and hit it. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes out and just hits it hard right away.
Yeah. And Jordan Mason has been playing well. So then you think, what's his role in the offense going to be now?
Yeah. Did he buy himself some carries?
Yeah.
Possibly.
Probably. I would assume.
So.
And I'm thinking McCaffrey will be on limited touches. It's not like an injury where like if he broke his wrist, you recover. This is like a consistent. Yeah. So I'm interested to see what his use will be like in this offense for sure.
Yeah, maybe you are right there. Maybe this is. Achilles tendonitis is something where you would be eased back in. You want to make sure that you don't have any kind of pain that could come back or cause a problem for Christian McCaffrey. So maybe you're right there. I think maybe easing him in would be the best option for an injury like this. But, I'm no specialist on that. So
we'll see what they do. But hopefully he's not rushed back in. Our last bit of news here for now is that the Saints fired their head coach. Dennis Allen is no longer the head coach of the Saints. And I think Saints fans are rejoicing. I think this is a good firing for them. He has not really done what they want him to do there.
After starting the season, scoring 80 points in the first 2 games.
Yeah.
They've returned to normal
mediocrity.
Yeah. Actually, the last 7 for them has been worse than mediocre. This has just been straight up bad. They lost to the Panthers this week, and if anything warrants a firing of a head coach, it's your 7th straight loss,
losing to the worst team in the league,
losing to the worst team in the league while doing it, and just think about I believe they had it around the maybe near midfield. It was like 4th and 4, and they called it was like a slot fade shot like to the boundary, but it was 4th down. It was basically this was the game for the Saints.
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
the play they draw.
Oh, I do remember. Yes,
was about like 30, 40 yards downfield on a fade ball.
And he's got it's a very contested. Like he's got to reach around the guy to make an incredible catch, and he didn't. Obviously, Panthers go on to win that game, but what's the call there? What are we doing?
That's just another thing. So it's like even if you win that game, I still think this is the right move to fire Dennis Allen.
Yeah,
here.
And I think Saints go into full rebuild mode here. Obviously, it's good for me because I'm a Falcons fan. I'll take it every day. I am a little upset that Dennis Allen is gone because, again, he's just led them to only mediocrity. And I'm a Falcons fan, so I love, seeing the Saints just struggle. But we'll see how they become. Now you think, what happens to Derek Carr in the offseason? That's a big thing, too.
The other thing is, Michael Thomas was just going at Derek Carr on social media. It's become a really dicey situation over there in New Orleans. After such a good start to the season, you wonder if they go into full rebuild mode. How available is that everyone on the Saints right now? If I'm a GM, I think I'm picking up the phone and I'm saying, if you've had a struggling run game, say, what about Alvin Kamara?
They just
what's going on with him right now?
And that's the problem is they just signed Kamara to a big deal, so I don't think they would trade him. But I've seen crazier things happen.
Yeah,
right?
But you know what? When you think about that, ultimately those trades don't usually work out because they would need a lot of value back because they just signed him. So really tough situation for the Saints right now.
It really is just a terrible spot for Alvin Kamara. I mean, he didn't want to be there in the first place. They win those 2 games, and he's like, okay, yeah, maybe we're good. And now they lost 7 straight. So it's not a good look for them. I don't know. I don't know what they do. They got to figure out something, though. And Kamara's not a young guy either, so.
No, I'm glad I'm not in charge of rebuilding the Saints right now.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll try it later in Madden. I'll see how hard it is. It's probably really difficult.
It's very difficult because Derek Carr's contract is not cheap. Let's just put it that way. They don't really have much to work with.
Yeah.
But they got a third for Marshawn Lattimore, so maybe that's the turning point.
Yeah.
I doubt it, but anyway. Let's get into our game recaps. Let's start with probably one of the best games, if not the best game of the week this week.
Game winner.
Yeah. Dolphins, Bills. Obviously, the score was 30-27 Buffalo. Josh Allen gets it done again without really much help from his receivers.
No, if anything, his receivers did the opposite of help him. And at least in the beginning part of this game, he threw his 2nd interception of the year, only his 2nd, and it bounced off Keon Coleman's shoulder, chest area, whatever you want to call it. He could have worn that football for a shirt.
Yeah,
if he wanted to.
It was a perfectly placed ball, and it was like a read option.
Yeah, it was
like
they had
RPO. Yeah,
they had an RPO with the Keon was the slant going right towards the goal line, and absolutely had the look they wanted, but just Keon didn't catch that ball. I mean, do you have really an excuse for him?
No,
there?
I don't. Keon has had some drop problems early on. He's listed with only 3 drops, but if you watch the game, I swear he has more. He has the drop actually later on in the game, which isn't 100% his fault, but where Jordan Poyer hits him, very dirty hit, but he would have dropped the ball even if Poyer didn't hit him.
That is true, yeah.
Where is he standing without Amari Cooper in the lineup? Obviously, Bills are without Amari Cooper and Taron Johnson, but as for Amari Cooper, Keon has played his best football when Amari Cooper is next to him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of it is just it takes the pressure off, and he can run some different routes, get some cleaner looks, not as high stress of catches, and I think he's more comfortable on catching a ball on 1st and 2nd down as opposed to being that 3rd down guy when we need somebody to get 6 yards or something like that. But otherwise, I mean, if you look at the Dolphins in this game, I was impressed. As a Bills fan, I was not expecting the Dolphins to really come out and hit us that hard. But they ran the ball straight down Buffalo's throat. Raheem Mostert had a great game besides just the one fumble that kind of turned the tides for that game.
It did.
They were running the ball straight down the field. A-Chain was very involved. I think he had over 120 all-purpose yards.
Yeah. He had 12 carries, 63 yards, and a rushing touchdown. 8 receptions, 58 yards, and a touchdown. So 58 plus 63, that's...
121?
131?
100.
Nope, I can't do math. You're right.
Yeah.
Anyway, then Mostert had 10 rushes for 56 yards, which is 5.6 yards per carry, which is very good for a backup running back.
And this is kind of what McDaniel is there to do. He was there to open up the run game, and that's what makes this Dolphins team so good, is if you can open it up, then you have speedsters like Hill and Waddle who can get the ball on the edge and just cause problems. And A-Chain's kind of been more of that guy on the edge for them, too, when it comes to the passing game.
Yeah.
But you saw some good looks for Tyreek Hill in the second half, which is, putting some more confidence in the fact that they can push the ball down the field.
But Tua just underthrowing him, as usual.
Yeah.
But still, good looks for him, honestly.
Yeah. But
he's getting open.
If you're a Dolphins fan, it doesn't help that you have another loss in the loss column.
You did show some promise. You're not going to win the division, but
are you that mad about this game if you're a Dolphins fan? I say no.
You came in. Obviously, Tyler Bass hits the 61-yard game winner.
It takes a 61-yard field goal for the Bills to beat you on Sunday. So.
Right. And if Bass misses that, they have 20 seconds to go 10 yards and kick a field goal. We probably lose the game.
It's possible. I don't know if there was 20 seconds. I think there may have been.
I think it was 10.
Around 10, something like that.
So he misses that. You leave him with 8 seconds. They get a quick out. they kick a very long field goal, and if they make it, they win the game.
Or if they just go to overtime and get the ball, I would be confident in the Dolphins scoring.
I agree with that as well.
If they win the coin toss and they can go down the field running the ball like they had all game, as long as Buffalo didn't force any kind of freak turnovers there where they punch out another fumble, I think the Dolphins had a good amount of control over this game.
Yeah, and do you know who the leading receiver on the Buffalo Bills was this week?
I'm gonna go off the one play from Ray Davis. I'm gonna say Ray.
Yeah, it was Ray Davis. Davis, 70 yards. Khalil Shakir had 50. Kincaid had 32. Hollins had 30. Cook had 25, and Keon Coleman had 21. No single receiver over 50 yards.
Yeah.
It's a very sloppy offense, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, the Bills want to spread the ball around, and I guess if you want to have one good takeaway from that, that is it. That they did spread the ball out very well, and everyone touched it. Mac Hollins actually had some clutch plays for Buffalo, but you don't want to see nobody over 55 receiving yards when you have guys like Keon, Shakir. I have a lot of faith in him, and
Shakir had a lot of receptions too, but just only 50 yards for him, which it is what it is. Like, we got the win. It was very sloppy, I think, on offense and special teams besides for that Bass game winner. But other than that, where do you put Ray Davis now? I mean, he's outperformed Cook again, right? And I love James Cook just as much as the next guy. Mm-hmm. But where you have to put Ray Davis somewhere.
I disagree. I think Ray Davis is still great. I think he's wonderful. I think, and Tom Brady talked about this a lot during the Seattle game. James Cook is a slasher. Yeah. He slashes through defenses. He's great at those little cuts in traffic, and he can pick up 7-8 yards out of something that most people would only get 3 yards out of.
That's he's a very tough runner. Yeah.
Ray Davis did have a big play, but again, he does score a 70-yard touchdown 70-yard touchdown on a blitz. There was no one guarding him.
Right.
He had a free run to the end zone pretty much. And did he make anyone miss? I think maybe.
He might have I think he broke 1 or 2 tackles on the way there.
But that's in a wide open field.
Yeah.
So, I think you could have put almost anybody in the Buffalo offense in that position, or maybe any of the running backs in that position, and they probably score. And I'm not even trying to take away anything from Ray Davis, but I do still believe James Cook is absolutely our guy. I think, if anything, he can and he's ready to take over the pass catching.
Oh, I agree.
And I think that's overdue at this point. He's just been a more reliable pass catcher. James Cook dropped another one on Sunday.
Yeah, he does that a lot. We probably have like 3 more touchdowns last year if James Cook was able to bring in some catches,
and like on some wide open passes too.
I think that's why we brought Ray Davis in, and then we're like, wow, this guy's a really good backup running back, and I like Ty Johnson as well, like our third string, I guess now. But I really like all 3 of our running backs that we have, and it keeps the defense guessing, 100%. And here's a funny little stat for you. Ray Davis's touchdown was the longest touchdown reception by a Buffalo running back since C.J. Spiller.
Oh,
66-yarder on December 30th, 2012.
Wow.
Yeah. I love C.J. Spiller. I miss C.J. Spiller.
That's reaching deep into the memory bank. I mean, I was 7 years old when that happened.
Yeah, same.
If that.
So you love to see it.
I don't remember that play.
I don't remember either.
C.J. Spiller from time to time.
Yeah, I know C.J. Spiller was very good, but Ray Davis broke his. He had a long reception, I guess. He didn't really break anything. Yeah,
I guess.
But he had the longest reception since C.J. Spiller. That's a good stat for him. And, of course, Josh Allen, he passed Joe Ferguson for second place on Buffalo's all-time touchdown passing list. So that's another added to his trophy case, honestly. What else can you say, really?
I think he's going to break every Bills quarterback record.
100%.
Every Bills record, actually, by the time it's said and done. Maybe not like rushing yards, but it's possible with how long he'll be here.
And we own Miami. This is our 6th consecutive win since the heat stroke game, right? When we were in Miami and we lost like half our players to heat stroke. whatever. Sean McDermott's 80th win in the league. It's a big milestone for him, I suppose. And we are 24-5 against the AFC East since 2020, which is the NFL's best winning percentage versus their own division. We own the AFC East right now.
Yeah, and the AFC East, I don't know if that's the Bills playing well, or if that's more just the AFC East being weak this year. You could probably say it's because the AFC East is decently weak this year.
And it's since 2020, so Brady wasn't on the Patriots at this time.
Yeah,
so
that's an added bonus for that stat. But
right.
Other than that,
I don't have much else to talk about for that one. Yeah,
just that's probably the happiest loss I'll have if I'm a Dolphins fan this season. I think I would have been encouraged by the way you guys played.
But they might still be out of contention.
Yeah,
I think the Dolphins are still out of contention.
Yeah.
Just the injury to Tua really screwed them up. They've had I think double-digit fumbles in the past games. Really just not getting anything going. I don't see them being in the playoffs this year.
No,
but
neither do I.
Let's talk about another team that should have probably been in the playoffs but is not, and just got rocked by my Falcons. Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys, what are we doing?
Dak said it really well during the game.
Yeah.
We bleeping suck.
Yeah. I couldn't say it better, actually, And for the Falcons, I mean, we are 6-3 for the first time since we went to the Super Bowl.
Wow.
6-3 since 2016.
Good memories.
Yeah.
Huh?
I wouldn't say good memories. Good memoes up till the actual
Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That obviously one of the most depressing Super Bowl games I've ever watched as a Tom Brady hater.
And
but still, up until then, great memory.
It was a good memory. Yeah, I mean, obviously Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, unstoppable forces, but this time we got Kirk Cousins and Drake London or Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney kind of came out of this game and took over once Drake London went out with his hip injury. 5 receptions, 88 yards, and a wide open touchdown.
Yeah.
And the defense actually looks really good. We had our season high 3 sacks this week.
Wow.
We recorded 0 in multiple weeks.
Yeah.
So I'll take it. I'll take it. It's still not good. But
Mike McCarthy did help out the Falcons defense a little bit with that fake punt.
Oh yeah, that was brutal. I mean, not brutal for me, but it was brutal for Dallas. What are we doing?
I laughed.
I'm surprised he hasn't been fired yet.
No, talk about the longest leash I've seen in a while with a coach.
I honestly think he should have been fired 2 years ago. Now they're pretty much out of playoff contention. I mean, we didn't even touch on the fact that Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Trayvon Diggs got hurt in this game, and the Falcons lost London, Grady Jarrett, and A.J. Terrell. So lots of injuries across the board, but Dak's out for multiple weeks now. Cooper Rush has to take over. I think the Cowboys are officially out of contention.
Yeah, they're
and their division is tough.
Yeah, they're cooked at the moment, It's going to be hard, especially if you want to think fantasy-wise for a lot of these Cowboys players. There are a lot of players on the Cowboys that people are looking to start. Dowdle had a good week last week. CeeDee Lamb is obviously the guy that you are going to be starting, the main guy from the Cowboys, and now it's crap. Cooper Rush.
Yeah, Cooper Rush and Jonathan Mingo. I don't know about that one.
Yeah.
I have not. But obviously, Falcons, we look great this year. If I had to give you one stat to show how much better we are this year than last year, Kirk Cousins, through halfway through the season, has thrown 17 touchdown passes, right?
Yes.
That is the same amount that former Falcons quarterback, Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke combined for in the entire season of 2023.
I don't doubt that at all. They were very bad.
They were extremely bad. And obviously, Desmond Ridder got a little bit of time this week, but just one of the worst Falcons quarterbacks I think I've ever watched.
I have some breaking news.
Breaking news.
So, per Adam Schefter, trade. Rams are sending cornerback Tre'Davious White.
There it is.
And a 2027 7th-round pick.
27.
To the Ravens. For a 2026 7th-round pick.
7th-round pick from next year?
That is it. So They are I mean, okay, so this trade is a little confusing for me. Can you just reaffirm for me, how good or bad has Tre'Davious White been?
So, Tre'Davious White has not been very good.
Mm-hmm.
The Rams actually took him out. He's been a healthy scratch the past 2 or 3 weeks now. He hasn't looked very good on the Rams. Maybe he'll pick it back up. The Ravens desperately needed that secondary help.
I think maybe that's just what they're looking for, is someone who's definitely had it earlier in his career. I mean, think about how good he was when he played for the Bills.
Yeah.
Early in his career there.
He's just been very injury prone, obviously, as we know. And he hasn't looked like his former self since he's been out for 2 years.
I mean, but think about this trade, okay? Because the Rams are sending over a 7th-round pick. They're also receiving a 7th-round pick.
Yeah.
In different years. However, for me, those cancel out.
Yeah. I mean, they're 2026 and 2027 7th-round picks. I mean, I'm not worried about it.
Those cancel out for me. And what I'm left with is Tre'Davious White being sent to the Ravens for nothing?
Tre'Davious White being sent to the Ravens for a handshake.
Yeah.
That's what I think it was. And I hate to see Trey getting traded away like that, but he hasn't been very good. The Rams were probably going to release him if they didn't find a trade partner, and I guess the Ravens were like, "Hey, we'll give you this bag of Doritos if you give us Tre'Davious White." And that's where we're at, you know. So
we'll give you this bag of Doritos for Tre'Davious White if you give us Tre'Davious White and a bag of Doritos.
Pretty much.
That's kind of what happened.
A bag of like Cool Ranch Doritos.
Cool Ranch, yeah. Depending on what you like more. Right?
Yeah.
So
there you go. I mean,
you win that trade if you're a bigger Cool Ranch Doritos guy than a nacho cheese.
What are you going to do with the 7th-round pick? That's what I think. And Tre'Davious White's definitely worth it. I think he'll add some depth to that secondary. If not, you didn't give up that much.
If they can unlock anything in him, you know, from his past, then that's a big win for the Ravens.
But if you want to jump back into the games here,
I'll finish
up with my Falcons rant here.
Well,
I'll end on this quote. This is by my head coach, Raheem Morris. He says, "I know Arthur Blank wants more than 6 wins. I know it's my job to go out there and get it. This organization deserves more. This team deserves more. These coaches deserve more. And we are hungry, man. We just want to go out there and keep getting them."
Wow.
That's awesome. I love to see that. I mean, I dealt with Arthur Smith last year. Yeah. Arthur Smith last year.
That was a quote from who?
Raheem Morris. That's the Falcons head coach. Yeah. I dealt with Arthur Smith last year, one of the worst head coaches I've ever seen, paired with one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen on the Falcons. That was a dark time. And I'm so glad we are back. Bijan Robinson is playing great. Drake London is playing great. Kirk Cousins is playing great. The defense is playing well. And I love to see us succeeding for once. And we are hungry in this NFC South that's not really giving us much pushback here. But that's all I got.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Let's jump into another game that we thought was noteworthy for a couple different reasons, but it's not a very close game.
No.
Bears at Cardinals. Caleb Williams did not look very good against a not great Cardinals defense.
Yeah, the Cardinals' front four has actually been pretty good this year, but other than that, not much. Mm-hmm. I can't really tell you. There's not much in the secondary. Mm-hmm. Caleb Williams shouldn't have had too tough of a time going against this, Cardinals secondary, but just unable to get anything going. He was 22 of 41 on passes, 217 yards, no turnovers, but he had a 68.9 passer rating and was sacked 6 times.
Yeah, sacks are almost like a quarter. I agree and I also disagree when people say sacks are a quarterback stat. When you get up to 6, I think that's his problem, and I think he's just got to get rid of the ball, and I'm sure they're going to work on that, and he'll probably get better. That's what happens with good quarterbacks. But again, there's got to be a little bit more protecting your guy too at the same time.
100%.
You do have to let him play make back there, and he's going to need a little more protection if he wants to be able to do that.
And just terrible coaching, I think, too. I know the Bears are in a pretty solid spot right now. Granted, they are bottom of their division, but they are in a solid spot. I mean, they have, I think, more wins this year, or the same amount of wins this year than they did last year already. So they're not playing bad, but they're not going to get to a level where that they can be a strong playoff team unless they get rid of their head coach. Yeah. I mean, the Bears are 0-18 on the road on Sunday under Matt Eberflus. 0-18 on the road.
I don't know what it is about playing on the road, but man,
he can't do it apparently.
I guess so, and I don't know what kind of struggles playing on the road brings to the Bears and Matt Eberflus. I really couldn't tell you, but let me switch over to the Cardinals here for a second. On top of their division.
They are the top of their division right now. Yeah.
Who would have seen that coming, especially only at 5-4?
Yeah.
Which solid record, not great by any means though. When you talk about leading your division,
and when the rest of your division is what 5 loss now. The Seahawks are the bottom. Then we got the Rams, who are up and coming. I really like them, and obviously the Niners, who had a bye week this week. They didn't play this week. Or did they play Thursday?
You keep talking. I'm just going to check.
All right,
that.
Yeah, my bad. I can't remember. I thought I would remember if the Niners played this week. Anyway, very competitive division, like we've talked about before.
They were on bye.
Okay, thank God. I was going to say that would have been embarrassing if I was wrong. But, like I said, very competitive division. Cardinals, they have won the most division games. They are undefeated against their division right now. They have a pretty easy strength of schedule. They're easily a playoff team. They easily could sneak into the playoffs. But they're not going to do it unless they get something going in the pass game. I mean, the Cardinals won, but it's because they outrushed the Bears 213-70.
Well, I think that's just kind of part of the game script, right? They were never, I don't believe, were they down in this game at any point?
Not unless it was really early. I don't think so,
I mean, they were ahead the whole time, and honestly, this is what you want to see a team do when they are ahead. You don't even want...
Keep pushing,
Why risk it? Why throw the ball? Kyler Murray, he was careful with the ball. Only 13 of 20, which isn't great by any stretch of the imagination, but James Conner, it looks like they finally did figure something out in terms of running the ball, because they have had their struggles.
James Conner, Emari Demercado.
Yeah, he had a 53-yard dash
and that
to
was,
the end zone.
And this is all coaching. That play 100% is all coaching. That's at the end of the second quarter, and you're trying to... The Cardinals were running the clock out, and they broke through, and they got a 53-yard touchdown as the clock was nearing zero. That is all coaching. That is 100% a coaching failure from Matt Eberflus. There's no reason that should happen at all.
And it's not even James Conner touching the ball in that spot. It's the backup, Demercado. I mean, and I'm not trying to throw any kind of shade, but that's just like, hand the ball off, quarter's over.
Right.
Kind of.
That is what it is, yeah. And the fact that he got out and scored, I mean, good for him. I have always sung the praises of Emari Demercado. I think he's a very, crafty little player. But that's not something, if you're the Bears, that's not something you should give up. I mean, clearly, obviously, but just terrible coaching. All 3 of the touchdowns for the Cardinals were on the ground. Kyler Murray, he's up there in the MVP conversations. I don't think he's going to win it, but the fact that he's up there is a big plus for Cardinals fans, 100%.
And towards the beginning of the season, I was saying I have faith in the fact that the Cardinals could be a top 10 offense, and I've been sweating that over the past few weeks. They've had their fair share of bad games. Yeah. And I'm not out of the woods yet. Sometimes when you turn on a Cardinals game, they just don't look anything like they did, for example, this week against the Bears.
Right.
But, again, 29 points this week. Had a good showing last week. Now they're kind of on a heater here where if they get going, then they sustain this level of offensive output where they're easily a playoff team.
Yeah.
And they could win the division.
And obviously, the trade deadline is not over. But if you lose this game, you think maybe your best player on your defense, Budda Baker, might get traded. But now, if they're a playoff team, they're pushing for the playoffs. They're not going to trade away their guys like that.
Yeah, no. So it lets them keep their guys, and you know what? Maybe they make some phone calls to see who they can get. To buff out some rough spots on that defense too.
Right, but you're saying we're not selling. we're the top of our division right now. We're not selling out. You can't just offer us a 7th-round pick, I think this is a big win for them. This is one that they needed, kind of a defining win, and hopefully they keep it up. And I would love to see them in the playoffs. I think they'd be a very fun team to watch. They're going back to their 2021 Cardinals way, where they look really good. So hopefully they keep that up, like I said, and we'll see where they go from there. But kind of a team that fell off this week, and you can have this one because, I criticized you for saying that the Jets were going to beat the Texans. I had no faith that the Jets were going to go in there and beat the Texans, but you know what? They did. I don't know if it was bad for the Texans or good for the Jets. I don't really know. If you want to take this one over, I guess.
Yeah, so the Jets beat the Texans by 8, and that's also if you factor in the dropped touchdown. Where I forget his name, the rookie
Malachi Corley, I believe.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Western Kentucky, 3rd or 4th round.
Yeah, where he drops the ball for a touchback right before he scores. So. Sorry for the gamblers who had some kind of money. That's a terrible.
That is a
right
bad
there.
beat. Yeah.
If you needed them by
if
more
you took
than
the
8
over or something.
Yeah. But I think this was a really great win for the Jets. They're still sitting at 6 losses. That's hard to come back from. But you have to play nearly perfect to even come close to a playoff spot now. However, they are set up to do so. They're geared up to do so. We finally saw a game where Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson were just hand in hand, stride for stride, playing really, really well. And, I think they tried to force Davante Adams the ball
I think so
couple too many times in the first half and even in the second half a little bit. But once the offense really got rolling and they found Garrett Wilson, they fed him the ball when they could. He made a handful of gnarly plays. The one-handed catch in the end zone was the main one.
You can't go without talking about that,
And then there was another one-handed right over a defender. I think that they ended up scoring on that drive. Or I don't. Did he score on that play? I forgot. We're trying to remember back to Thursday.
It was Halloween. You got to give me a break. I wasn't really paying that much attention to it.
Yeah.
But I do remember the Garrett Wilson one-hand nasty in the back of the end zone. That's gonna go down in history as one of the best catches for sure.
Yeah, and I just think it's good that they got both of them going. You can look at Davante Adams when it's more situational, where kind of like the end of the game where he scored his 37-yard touchdown. That's a situation where you do look to Davante Adams because that's just connection right there. Aaron Rodgers and Davante
wide
Adams.
open too. Yeah,
that's a play they've probably ran a million times through practice games, whatever. That is kind of a spot where I can see them getting the ball to him, and Garrett Wilson can just be the main guy besides that. There's no reason to short anyone, any balls in this offense. And
I think that's part of the reason why they got rid of Mike Williams as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he clogs it up a little bit when you're trying to get these two great receivers the ball. And Breece Hall, fine game. I think he averaged somewhere near 5 yards a carry, so a lot of efficiency from him. And Houston, they had a chance, kind of, but C.J. Stroud was stifled by the Jets.
He was stifled. Probably the worst game of his career. Yeah. That might be, too much, but
I have it. He was 11 for 30.
11 for 30, 191 yards, but he had 8 rushes for around 60 yards.
That helps.
And I messed up. I didn't think Tank Dell would be as good as he was, but he had 126 of those yards, and he was one of only 3 receivers that caught passes.
But you know what? That's an anomaly for me. Because
that is crazy.
I would have been all over sitting Tank Dell against the Jets. And you know what? You look at the game C.J. Stroud had. Yeah. You wouldn't expect him to perform. But he caught over half of C.J. Stroud's total completions.
And, obviously we can't go without talking about Joe Mixon, 24 carries, 106 yards, touchdown. But I think part of the reason why Tank Dell was so open is because people are overlooking the fact that Sauce Gardner is not having a good year this year. I have a couple of stats here.
Yeah, let's hear him because, I haven't heard much about him this year. No one's talking about it.
Not playing well, and I don't know why we're not talking about it. He was obviously locked down his rookie year. Very good his second year. He's coming into the league. This is his 3rd year. He's currently graded by PFF as the 84th best corner.
Oh,
84th best. This is the guy who's supposed to be top 5, maybe even top 3 in the league. And I mean, take it with a grain of salt. I'm not the biggest fan of PFF, but when you look at that, you can't tell me that there's not something wrong, you know?
Yeah, and that should be investigated. What is the root of that problem? Is it Robert Saleh leaving?
I don't know.
But then again, he wasn't great before Robert Saleh left necessarily, was he?
No,
I don't know.
No, not really. He's 51st in coverage in the league. For a guy who's supposed to be top 10, top 5, top 3. He's allowed 16 receptions, which is the 64th best. He's had 0 interceptions. He's missed 8 tackles, which is almost dead last for corners in the league. Missed 8 tackles. And it was apparent in the Texans game as well. A lot of people even noticed that. 17.4 yards per reception, which is actually pretty decent. Only 4 pass breakups, and he allows a 99.6 passer rating, almost 100 passer rating.
See, that's just something that if you didn't bring to my attention would have gone completely under the radar. I would not have even thought of it because the Jets defense as a unit has played so well.
They have, yeah. And I mean, again, they've always been very good. But this is, I mean, realistically, this is a weak spot, and it's not supposed to be. I don't know what's happening with Sauce, but this is not where you want him to be. You can't blame it on a sophomore slump, his second year where he's just kind of, everybody's figuring him out. But no, he's not playing to he was the 3rd overall pick, not playing to his rookie standards even. But other than that, I don't have much else to talk about on the Texans Jets.
No, I don't have anything else. Let's go to another game that
We've
maybe not very not very notable, but for football talk it is. We're going to talk about Carolina Panthers beating the New Orleans Saints. We touched on the Saints head coach Dennis Smith being fired, and a big part of that was Carolina beating them on Sunday. That's bad.
Yeah, and I mean, Derek Carr is also a reason for that. He did not play well, and he threw a very bad hospital ball to Chris Olave, who got rocked. I mean, I don't blame it at all on the Panthers' safety. It was I shouldn't say at all. It was a big hit. It was a tough hit, but that where the ball is placed, the safety has no other choice but to hit him. And, this is his 5th concussion in his career, something like that. He's had a lot.
Yeah.
He's up there with Tua at this point, where it's like, you should wear a Guardian cap, and he's actually hinted at wearing a Guardian cap, but he didn't wear one, which, came back to bite him. But he's had a lot of concussions, a lot of blows to the head. I don't know where he stands. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think this is just a good week for the Saints to, take a check on their whole team, get rid of Dennis Allen, maybe consider getting rid of Derek Carr. They already trade away Lattimore. They need a reset at this point. I don't think there's nowhere you can go with this team, especially with Derek Carr at the helm.
Yeah.
And there have been some surprising stats that have come out over the weekend that I've seen on social media about Derek Carr. He's been one of the most losingest quarterbacks.
I was just going to bring that up, actually.
Yeah. Do you have the stat exactly or no?
He is... Oh, man. I don't have it on here. I thought I did.
All right. Well, let me talk about the Panthers briefly.
Go ahead.
Because this was great for Bryce Young. I don't know if anyone saw the post-game interview where he's smiling a lot after the game. He says he's probably going to be smiling all the way through next week. I could not be happier for the young man. I don't know. Again, it's hard to tell what the future holds for this Panthers team because they are so bad. But in general, so happy for Bryce Young to finally get that first win, but a win this season for him under his belt.
This was the first time in his career that Bryce Young took a knee to end the game.
Wow.
First time ever.
What a feeling. That
good for him, though.
Great.
I love it. I really want to see him succeed. I think, he's in a really bad situation right now with the Panthers. But I did find the Derek Carr stat.
Yes.
He's now lost to 31 teams. And they play the Raiders in 4 weeks. So he could be the first quarterback ever to lose to all 32 teams.
Wow. And I mean, the Raiders, you can't lose to your own team, right? You know, he was on the Raiders for a long time.
Hopefully not, but we'll see. I mean, for our standpoint, we would love to see it happen because it's something we can talk about.
Yeah.
But he's lost to now 31 teams. Doesn't look good. Not good for him. And
no, and you wonder if he's out of chances, right? Because you only lose to 31 teams if you're given an ample opportunity to do so.
Yeah, really. Yeah, I mean, they lost to the Panthers for the first time since he's been there, so not a good look. But right, you can't lose to 31 teams unless you're given the opportunity to do so.
And not just it's not like you just play 31 teams, once every team,
Right.
You have to be given enough opportunities to play each of these teams at least 3 times and lose to each of them. I mean, you have to be so mediocre, mediocre bordering on the side of bad to be able to do that. And, part of that's him, part of that's the teams he's been on, but maybe this is a reflection of him.
Isn't really the best, but I don't think that he deserves all the money they give him. Let's just put it that way. But no, he's not the right guy for them. And do you remember last week when I was like, "Oh, teams have been 750-0, and then the Jets broke the streak"?
Yes.
I got another one for you.
All right.
It happened again. Before Sunday, NFL teams were 275-0 in the last 20 years when they outgained their opponents by 150-plus yards while also running for 150-plus yards, and they won the turnover battle. But thanks to the Saints, the record is now 275-1.
Oh, my God.
So they had more than 150-plus yards while also running for 150-plus yards, and they won the turnover battle, and they still lost.
I mean, man.
If I was Marshawn Lattimore, I'd say get me out too. Yeah, honestly.
Marshawn Lattimore's got to be really glad to be leaving there, first of all. But also, I do want to give some flowers to Alvin Kamara. He's going to be suffering there for a while, depending on if they move him. They just was it an extension or just a re-sign? Or
I think it was a re-sign. Okay. 2 or 3 year contract. Not so great for him.
I mean, he had a great game. 29 carries for 155 yards. That's 5.3 per carry. And he also had 6 receptions on 9 targets for 60 yards. Just like someone who's so utilized on that offense and does play so well. And you lose.
Yeah.
And you lose.
Yeah.
And it seems that's all they do is lose.
It is all they do.
And lose. Yeah. So at what point is Alvin Kamara going to start becoming a problem? I mean, he's going to... You don't... sit on a bad team for that long and not start to be outspoken about
He had some fuss in the offseason. I think he was quoted saying, I don't want to be here next year. And then he signed the deal. But I thought he was not going to be a Saint next year. Looks like he's stuck with him. Poor guy, honestly. But let's move on to our final game that we want to talk about here. Rams, Seahawks. I only got a few things to say.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is an overtime thriller between these two divisional opponents. The Rams are back, ladies and gentlemen. Get on the phone. The Rams are back. Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp are enough to revitalize this offense. But Puka Nacua, he got ejected.
How crazy.
He got in the second or third quarter, he got ejected after punching former Bills linebacker Tyrell Dodson. He punched and Dodson, of course, shoved him. It was kind of a weak ejection, but you punch a guy, you get ejected. That's what happens. And, again, another thing that I want to talk about from the Rams, Cameron Kinchens, a rookie third-round pick. He returned an 103-yard pick six, which is a Rams franchise record, and the 4th longest in NFL history. Yeah.
4th longest in NFL history.
It was a rookie. That's okay. Insane.
Yeah.
Ed Reed, 107, 106, and Marcus May had a 104. But now Cameron Kinchens is, I think, tied with a bunch of other players for a 103. Wow. Good for him, young man.
No, very honestly. Good for him. Talk your stuff. But let me tell you this. I have a little small story. In one of my fantasy leagues, I was a owner of Jackson Smith and Jigba, and my opponent had Puka Nacua, and man, did the tides turn for me this week with this one game. I mean, I think I was given somewhere around a 10% chance or less to win. Puka gets ejected, JSN goes off for catching
career
7
game,
of 13 for 180 and 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's probably his best game since college.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
In college, I think he had like a 300-yard game.
He was insane in college,
like but this is so encouraging for the Seahawks, just to see him put up those kinds of numbers for the future in that sense.
Right.
However, you are in a win now position. It sucks to lose this game to the Rams.
And now be at the bottom of the division.
And now you're at the bottom of the division, and there's no clear path back up. You do have to beat your division rivals and win some extra games as well. The Seahawks had some rough goes of it recently. Bad loss to Buffalo the week prior. Now you lose in overtime to the Rams.
Yeah.
Morale and chemistry might be in question in that Seahawks locker room, and that definitely doesn't help.
No, and obviously it doesn't help when you have a career game and you lose. You put up 200 yards and 2 touchdowns and then lose. You're probably feeling really bad.
Yeah.
But we should move on to our next segment.
Yes.
Obviously, let's roll into our fantasy starts and sits for this week. James, we were like 5 for 6 this week. We went almost perfect on our starts and sits this week. If you want to go watch that back and, prove I'm not lying here, we were 5 for 6, I promise. But I've got some questionable ones this week, so maybe we'll hurt the average a bit. I'm 10 for 18 on starts, 9 for 15 on sits. James, you are 11.5 for 15 on starts, which is great.
Hey, I know who to start, guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're 9 for 15 on sits as well. But let's start with starts. Let's do QB first. I'm going to start, and I want to say Brock Purdy. I want to say start Brock Purdy on the 49ers against the Bucs.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of getting to a point. If you're playing the Bucs, start quarterbacks, start wide receivers, start running backs.
Start everybody. Again, they're ranked 31st in the league against the pass right now.
Yeah.
And obviously I know no Brandon Ayuk, but I don't think it'll be a problem for Purdy.
No.
And I think that they should have an offensive explosion this week against this Bucs banged-up secondary.
Yeah, for me, quarterback, I'm going to try to help you guys out. I know there's lots of injuries. People are streamlining quarterbacks. If you drafted Anthony Richardson, you're probably in a big problem right now. So if you need to get somebody for cheap, talk about a team that played their best game last week. Start Tua Tagovailoa. I think that offense is finally starting to come back. He doesn't have a whole lot of fantasy upside considering he doesn't run the ball. They don't want him to run the ball.
Yeah.
He will not score any rushing touchdowns, anything like that. But against a Rams defense that they're playing this week, that
bottom of the league Rams defense,
great. Towards the bottom of the league, I think still kind of in the middle area.
I want to say they're at least above 20, like 20th, I want to say.
Yeah, but they played their best game. Tua seems to be making the correct reads. He seems to be getting Tyreek Hill the ball, especially in the second half of that Bills game. So I'm very encouraged by what I saw from him. And I think he could score 3+ touchdowns, 250 yards. And I think that could be a game where he provides if you really need him in a tough spot.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Now,
how about your sit? Who are you sitting this week at QB?
My sit this week at quarterback, this was probably one of the easier sits I've had. I think, of course, next week it's going to come. This upcoming week it's going to come back and punch me in the face. But coming off a bad week in which he only scored 4 or 5 fantasy points, I'm going to sit Kyler Murray against the Jets. I mean, he just gets an even worse matchup. The Bears aren't great, but talk about the Jets are even worse.
Yeah.
They're 4th against quarterbacks in terms of allowing fantasy production. And he had a bad game last week. However, you could see him maybe put up some numbers because last week they didn't have any reason not to continue to run the ball. Right?
Yeah.
So last week could have just been a game where they ran the ball really well. The Jets are going to defend the run. The Jets are going to stop them. So they will be forced to pass the ball. I think Kyler Murray might make some mistakes here or there, whether they force a fumble, he throws a pick. I just think it's a tough spot for him to produce fantasy-wise. Now, what about...
You know what? We said sit Kyler Murray last week, and it worked, so I think you should listen to us again.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I'm saying Bo Nix. I know he's played really, really well.
Yeah.
But the Chiefs are a powerhouse on defense.
Yeah.
I mean, Steve Spags is the best coach, I think, in the league right now.
He's going to do criminal things to a rookie quarterback.
Exactly. You get it. They're going to make it a living hell for Knicks to play against them in Kansas City. I don't like the matchup here at all.
And you can't really rely on him mossing a defender for a touchdown every week.
He's not getting a receiving touchdown this week. But anyway, for wide receiver, or you want to do running back or receiver?
We'll go running back.
Running back here. Easy decision. Jonathan Taylor against the Bills. He's coming off one of his worst games of the season, but this Bills defense has proved once again they cannot stop the run. They looked really good against Kenneth Walker, but they looked terrible against Devon Achane. You look back in history, Jonathan Taylor has historically owned the Bills when he plays them. If I could tell you to start anybody this week, start Jonathan Taylor. He's at least going to get a touchdown. I guarantee it almost.
I'm playing him in fantasy this week. I mean, it's kind of you shouldn't ever have to be told to start Jonathan Taylor, but just make sure your lineups are set in every week. Sometimes he's been injured before. He's coming off a bad week too. So if you were thinking about benching him, Please ensure he's in the lineup. I think you're going to be missing out on a 30-point week, to be quite frank, as a Bills fan. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
For me here, I like to keep it a little more underground. I'm going to tell you, again, the Panthers are here defensively. Start Tyrone Tracy.
Yeah.
Do it, okay? Because he has carved himself quite the role in that offense.
And he deserves it,
He deserves it, not only. And he also has carved out a great receiving role where he's catching passes, too.
Mm-hmm.
You could see him get into the end zone multiple times.
Yeah. And he was a wide receiver in college, so.
Yeah, and the Panthers are 32nd against, everything.
Yeah, their defense is terrible.
You
saw what Alvin Kamara did to them.
Exactly.
You can start Tyrone Tracy.
And Tyrone Tracy, he's going to provide for you this week, so start him. Done.
Yeah.
Enough said.
And then I have kind of a no-brainer here at wide receiver, so I'll just blitz through this. Start Tyreek Hill. I know usually you wouldn't, but he is coming off some bad weeks. He's just hasn't put up Tyreek Hill numbers in a while. But this is going to be a boom week for him. I think, discard everything he's done in the past. This is going to be the Dolphins' defining game here. You said to start Tua. I'm saying, this is no-brainer, but start Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, and when you look at it, I mean, he hasn't had the amount of receptions, or maybe he hasn't even produced the amount of fantasy points you want, but 72 yards, 80 yards since Tua comes back, he's finding his way back into this offense, back into the groove of things. It's not easy to just come back and dominate as soon as your quarterback is back. I have a lot of faith in Tyreek Hill as well this week.
Yeah.
We didn't get. Who are you sitting at running?
Oh
back,
yeah, I kind of skipped over that.
Yeah,
that's my bad. I realized it halfway through, but I'm gonna sit. I don't know if I want to say sit. Can I say temper expectations? Yes,
for sure.
For Joe Mixon, he's their guy, but I don't think he's going to put up the numbers he did this week at all. He's going against one of the best rush defenses in the league, and this team is no joke to go against. Mixon is going to be hindered,
and
he's not going to put up the numbers he did last week. Let's just put it that way.
You also haven't seen him overwhelmingly involved in the pass game, so it's especially
actually not at all.
If you're in a PPR league, pass game is where you're going to get a lot of value. Joe Mixon could run for 100 yards and still only supply you 10 fantasy points if he doesn't find the end zone. So especially a rough matchup for him. Maybe he only goes for 80. 20 attempts for 80 yards and no touchdowns is only 8 points.
Yeah.
So, as much as he is a beast and 80 yards is still a lot, fantasy production-wise, it just might not be there.
I don't think it will be there this week. And he has played really well this season. But let's say you're between, Joe Mixon and Jonathan Taylor. There you go.
Yeah.
That's the difference right there.
That's your guy.
But who are you sitting at running back?
At running back, I'm going to sit Brian Robinson Jr. He's coming off a hamstring injury that he was dealing with.
Right.
And, this is only if he plays. He could end up not playing this week.
Yeah.
He's probably going to be limited in practice to some capacity. And he's just got a tough matchup against the Steelers, who are 11th in allowing points to fantasy running backs. And sometimes here and there with the Commanders' offense, he can be, not involved at all almost. There's been some games where he's just had, 9 attempts for 20 yards or something like that. And especially if you don't see him get into the end zone, he could have a really rough week. And then let me catch up to you.
Yeah, you do your wide receiver as well. I'm sorry, I jumped the gun.
Starting at wide receiver, I've got Brian Thomas Jr.
Really?
He plays a Vikings defense that has seen a little bit of a regression to the mean. They're 32nd, actually.
They are the worst secondary in the league right now.
Wide receivers allowing fantasy points. And, by the way, Brian Thomas Jr., position rank for wide receiver,
it's crazy.
Is 11.
Crazy.
So I don't know if any of you saw that coming at the beginning of the season. I don't know when he was drafted in your fantasy leagues. Probably very, very, very late.
Probably like one of the last rounds.
And he is wide receiver 11. So if you got him, you got away with a steal.
Right. He might have even been a waiver wire guy.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a massive pickup for anyone who drafted him this season, and he's going to have a massive week, in my opinion. So
hopefully he is hurt. So we'll see if he comes back. But
right, if he plays, I've had a couple of those so far this season.
That's okay.
I'm very excited for the matchup and not totally paying attention to the injury concerns.
It is what it is. But yeah. Now I'm going to go out on a limb here again. I'm going to do sit wide receiver here.
Mm-hmm.
Sit DeAndre Hopkins.
Mm-hmm.
I know he just had the only 2 receiving touchdown game since Byron Pringle in 2021. I think.
Wait, say the stat again.
So DeAndre Hopkins has caught 2 receiving touchdowns this week. Mm-hmm. That's the first time it's happened since Byron Pringle in 2021. I think.
For the Chiefs?
I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Byron Pringle?
Yeah, I mean, the name doesn't matter as much as the...
See, but that's something that you wouldn't expect when you're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs, man.
Yeah. I'm sure, maybe Travis Kelce has had like 2 touchdowns or more.
Yeah, he probably has.
But for wide receivers, at least...
that kind of shows you the state of their...
Yeah, their receiver room has been bad.
But yeah, he had a great week last week, but just a tough matchup is what you're saying.
Yeah. Terrible matchup against PS2. Broncos defense is no joke. If I had a guess, I would think that this is going to be like a 3-3 game at half. Like not a very offensive game. Mahomes just doesn't look good. I think D-Hop, they just involved him in the game plan a lot more this week, and the Bucks weren't expecting that,
Yeah, and I think also part of it is his involvement is going to be limited in some aspects.
Yes.
The same ways he was involved last week, he's probably going to be involved in the same ways this week. And that just makes it very easy to game plan defensively, especially if you're a good defense like Denver, well coached, very disciplined. They don't allow big plays. I think, if anything, if there's something good that comes out of this in terms of starting somebody, you could start Harrison Butker. I think he could make a pair of 50 yarders in this game.
I agree.
But I really wouldn't start anyone from this game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be a dogfight for sure. For me.
Yeah, and this goes hand in hand with your Kyler.
Yeah, I'm going to sit Marvin Harrison Jr. against the Jets. Not only did Marvin Harrison Jr. struggle last week, Kyler Murray struggled last week.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just got a tough matchup. Jets are number 1 against wide receivers in terms of allowing fantasy production. I just don't have much else to say. I think if it came down to choosing Brian Thomas Jr. or Marvin Harrison Jr., go with Brian Thomas.
Yeah, as long as he's healthy. Yeah.
As long as he's playing, make sure that you know of that. But, maybe Marvin Harrison could have some crazy plays. You could always end up with that. So,
all right, let's move on to our next segment. Also, should know that as of now, it is 4:01 p.m. So the trade deadline is officially over for the NFL. Yeah. So everything else is final. Maybe there's something we missed, but as of now, no other trades are happening. Let's move into our midseason power rankings, though. You want to do your power rankings first? You want me to do my power?
No, you can go ahead.
All right, yeah. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you got it.
I'll start with my power rankings here. I think the easy number 1 here is the Lions. They are the best team in the league right now. My number 2 give me the Baltimore Ravens. I think they look great. Number 3, and these two were close, but because the Ravens beat them, give me the Commanders at 3, and then give me the Bills at 4, and give me the Chiefs at 5.
Chiefs at 5.
I've thrown the Chiefs way down there because I think they're very beatable. They've played a lot of very bad teams, and they've won by, like, luck, pretty much.
Okay.
I think if you run this one back, you run the Chiefs, Ravens back, Ravens win that game.
Okay.
100%, right?
I think you're hating.
I'm hating a little bit. I am. I'm hating a little bit. I know they're 7-0, but I can't see them being. I think when we play the Chiefs, I know I'm about to jinx it, but I think when we play the Chiefs, we'll give them their first loss this season. The Bills, I mean.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
And, I think if the Commanders played the Chiefs, they would win. I think if the Lions played the Chiefs, they would smoke them. I think if the Ravens played the Chiefs, they would win again.
Okay.
I'm thinking all these teams could easily beat the Chiefs.
Okay.
But then under them, at number 6, I put the Falcons, who I do think could beat them in a rematch.
Okay.
And I have them a little high. It might be a little biased.
Yeah.
But I know you're not liking me for these power rankings so far, but I'm thinking.
No, it's okay. Honestly, you've so far named teams that are on my list. But it's not completely out of whack.
All right, so I got Lions, Ravens, Commanders, Bills, Chiefs at 5, Falcons at 6, Vikings at 7.
Okay,
they've fallen off a lot in the past couple of weeks. Almost lost to the Colts. I have the Eagles at 8. They've looked really good the past couple of weeks. They've smoked any of their opponents that they've played. You got the Bengals, the Giants, and now the Jaguars, who they didn't really smoke, but it was a one-sided game. And then at 9, I got the Steelers. And at 10...
Wait, sorry, I just got a late trade alert.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Finish up your power rankings, then we'll visit this.
9, the Steelers, who just got 2 guys in the trade deadline. And at 10, my wild card team here, give me the Rams. Rams at 10. Yeah.
The Rams at 10. Okay, so we're different at our 10th spot.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So per Ian Rappaport, right at the buzzer, the Texans traded backup defensive tackle Khalil Davis to the 49ers for some depth. That's it.
Yeah, not worried about
nothing
it.
Else.
Yeah,
nothing
not
crazy.
even worth talking about. But let's just do your power rankings.
Okay, so at number 1, which is where I don't know how you don't put the Chiefs at number 1. I've got the Chiefs at number 1. They're undefeated.
I don't know about that. I think that's crazy.
I think you're crazy. I think you got to go off the fact that the Chiefs are undefeated.
If you're going off
record
alone,
they found a way to win every single time. And you know what? Last night we finally got a glimpse of what Patrick Mahomes looks like when the season starts to get down to the nitty gritty. I don't think he missed a pass on 3rd down.
No, he played really well in overtime.
He played really well in overtime and the entire second half.
But yeah,
you can argue that it's a bad Bucs defense.
Yeah,
fine. But
bad Bucs
the
defense.
Chiefs are still the best team in
Bucs
the league.
Offense. I just don't. I don't think so.
They found something with Kareem Hunt.
That's true. They did.
They found something with Kareem Hunt.
Their
D-Hop
defense
looks like he fits in very well.
Right.
Patrick Mahomes looked like the best quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
All right. I mean,
they look good. They look very beatable, though.
Sure. You know what? And
I think if we're talking
I will never
about,
disagree with you on that front.
Yeah. I think, and again, the Bucs aren't even in my top 10, right? Like, they haven't played any of... Okay, they played one of the teams that are in my top 10 so far, right? They've played only the Falcons.
That's a good point. So, I mean,
and
the Bucs
if the Falcons didn't make a stupid play call, we would have beat them.
Yeah.
They lost to the Ravens by this much, like...
Yeah.
I don't know. I think they're very good.
You could... Well, here, my number 2, I've got the Lions. I think you could certainly put the Lions above the Chiefs if you really wanted to.
I'm just thinking if the Lions played the Chiefs, they would smoke them.
If you think back to last year, I think they'd get some revenge. I remember they lost the opening game of the season last year to the Chiefs, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Lions beat the Chiefs week 1.
So, I think the Lions could, beat them again. It would be a close game, though. I think
It would.
like you're never gonna blow out the
I
Chiefs.
can't count them out. I've been counting them out, and I've been wrong. But I'm going to
Yes,
continue
you
to
have.
count them out. I'm a D1 hater of the Chiefs right now. I'm not going to lie.
Then in the third spot, I've got the Ravens. I would
Mm-hmm.
love to have put the Bills there, but
They lost.
They lost to the
by a
Ravens,
lot.
and that loss to the Ravens doesn't just move them down to fourth, because at fourth, I actually agree with you here. I've got the Commanders as well.
Okay.
The Bills for me are going to move all the way down to 5 because
That's fine.
I just can't. I think the Bills could beat the Commanders, but I think that
Yeah.
loss to Baltimore, it was just terrible.
It was really
And
bad.
the Commanders played Baltimore and didn't lose that bad.
Yeah.
You know, so they just played better against the same team, and so I've got Bills. Where was I?
5. You're at 5.
I was at 5. Okay, so then at 6, I've got the Vikings. I still think they're better
Yeah.
than your Falcons.
Okay.
Which I mean, you have to agree. with
They
me.
it was a close one for me. I was just thinking they haven't really had a good win in a little bit.
Yeah, it's been a little while. So looking for them to prove something to me in
Right.
these upcoming weeks, or else we could see the Falcons move ahead of them pretty easily here, because right after them I have your Falcons.
Okay, so we're pretty close on most of
We've
these. You
been
just
actually-
moved the Chiefs way up.
I had the Chiefs way up, and then I flip flopped your Falcons and Vikings, right?
Yeah,
So now we're at 7 now, yeah.
I think so, yeah.
So 7, I've got the Steelers.
Okay.
Because I've liked what I've seen from them. I think they can beat a lot of good teams. They've got great defense. I've seen a lot
Yeah.
from Russell Wilson. I've seen all I need from
They are
Russell
they are
Wilson.
scary if Russell Wilson goes back. And actually, the next one would be 9. I can't really count. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Wait, sorry.
So Steelers at 8.
Sorry, okay, Steelers at 8. Sorry. 9. Okay, sorry. 9, you might hate me for this. You might 9 and 10 are questionable.
Okay.
Okay, and you can rebuttal both of them. 9, I've got the Packers.
Okay. I don't hate it.
You don't hate that.
Jordan Love's a turnover machine right now.
But that's kind of what's been holding me back on him for a little bit, is like, if he isn't just a turnover machine, he could really put himself in the MVP race.
Yeah.
With how good the team is. But he's really held himself back.
They have a good record, but I don't think they're very strong.
No, I agree there. And
And
then
who's your 10 spot here?
my 10, because I truly think they're going to end the season that well, is the 49ers.
Okay. I thought you were going to say Cardinals, but I'll take the Niners. Yeah.
I've got the 49ers at my 10 spot. I think they're going to finish the season really well with CMC coming back. They're going to get healthier, and they're always a team to look out for when the season gets into the nitty-gritty.
I agree with that. All right. Let's very quickly run through our early awards. We're halfway through the season, so we're going to run through MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year, Offensive Rookie, and Defensive Rookie of the Year.
I'll run through mine pretty quick, because this has turned into quite the long episode, to be
Yeah.
completely honest. So
we're pushing almost an hour and a half. It's all right.
lots to
keep
talk
running.
about. Halfway through the season, trade deadline, there's a
Right.
lot, all right? So my early MVP, very unbiased take, is Josh Allen. The one thing that I've got here is that he's 4th in touchdowns, and he's thrown 7 less interceptions than he did at this time last season. And when you look at the interceptions he's thrown, one bounced right off Keon Coleman's chest that he could have worn as a T-shirt if he wanted to. And the other one, Amari Cooper, kind of slipped, kind of was a bad pass.
Yeah. I think they
So-
actually were both to Keon.
No, the other one.
first one
the
was
first
to
one was
Amari?
absolutely Amari Cooper.
Okay,
I remember
okay.
that one. So in all honesty, I think Josh Allen's thrown like one true interception for me, and then they're also a 7-2 team. So
Right.
still a lot to prove. We haven't really beat a great team yet, but Josh Allen is the guy who can prove that. And my Offensive Player of the Year, I've got Derrick Henry. I think
That's an easy one,
there's
yeah.
nothing else that needs to be said. I think if the Saints continued to be as hot as they were in the beginning of the season and won even like a 500 level amount of games, you could put Alvin Kamara in that category
argue
just
it,
because
but
of how
still.
good he's been. But Derrick Henry is like just otherworldly
Mhm.
in terms of his production. my early defensive player of the year.
This is actually a hot take, I fear.
Yeah, this is a hot take. I'll concede my hot take a little bit with a player that I'll mention afterwards. But if you just look at statistics, I mean, if you're a statistics guy, then the Lions have 2 DPOY candidates right now. Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph. Kirby Joseph has been the better of the 2. He's leading the league in tackles.
Interceptions.
Tied first for picks. And think about the Lions as a group. They're arguably the best team in football.
Yeah.
And their defense has been top notch. Not just in stopping the run. A little bit worse in terms of stopping the pass, but still a good unit overall.
Mm-hmm.
They've been blowing teams out. I think if you're going to talk about Defensive Player of the Year, you must mention arguably the greatest athlete in the game right now, best player in football, and that's T.J. Watt. The statistics don't back it up, but you got to know this. He's getting double teamed.
Right.
Teams are circling the Steelers on their schedule, and right next to that circle is T.J. Watt. Because
he's a game wrecker. He seriously
will
is.
Destroy the game for you if you let him. He's a guy who if you don't game plan for him, you screwed up.
Right.
So of course you got to throw his name out there. The stats will never back it up because he's game planned for. My early coach of the year, I've got Kevin O'Connell, and that's just because the Vikings, they've exceeded expectations like crazy. They still have some more to prove to me. You know, they got to make the playoffs at least, right?
Yeah.
And they're in position to do so, absolutely. And the fact that they've turned Sam Darnold into this great quarterback, that deserves Coach of the Year honors, and that's my early Coach of the Year. Now, for Comeback Player of the Year, I'll just touch on this quickly. Kirk Cousins, injured last year, playing great now. My early Rookie of the Year, also just the obvious choices, Jaden Daniels, not much to say there. And then my early Defensive Rookie of the Year, I've got Jared Verse, and that's because I had a hard time picking this one, and Jared Verse is just the obvious choice. Yeah. So that'll round out my early of the year everything. What about you?
All right. Well, we had very similar answers to most of these, but my MVP this year, and I hate to say it, I really do, but it is Lamar Jackson. 20 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 2,400 yards, 120.7 passer rating overall. But I do have to give it the runner-up to Josh Allen and even Joe Burrow. I think if Joe Burrow, his team was playing better, he would be up there right now. But again, you can't be the MVP if your team is losing. Sorry. It's just, it sucks, but that's how it goes. My Offensive Player of the Year, easy favorite, Derrick Henry. I don't think you can even argue that. He is just the best offensive. He's just the best running back in the league right now.
Yeah.
He's had a touchdown in every single game so far.
So reliable.
Yeah, and then my Defensive Player of the Year, I'm going with the D-line here. Give me Dexter Lawrence, Mr. Sexy Dexy himself. He's got 9 sacks on the year, and he's a nose tackle, which is, if you know a lot about football, that is very hard to do.
It makes my take on Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph look really bad. But he's got to keep that up. And that's extremely impressive.
Very tough.
If he ended the season at 9, you would say that's a lot.
Right.
But we're halfway through. And he's still got a lot of work to do.
He does. So. And my runner-ups for those are Xavier McKinney, Fred Warner's playing very good football, T.J. Watt, of course, can't rule him out. And my Coach of the Year, I want to also say Kevin O'Connell, but I want to give a special mention to Dan Quinn, because, again, those are 2 guys who, coming into the season, had no expectations, and now they're pretty much playoff teams. Maybe not the Vikings yet, but... Yeah. The Commanders for sure are going to the playoffs, I think. My Comeback Player of the Year, as bad as I want it to be Kirk Cousins, I have to give it to Joe Burrow, just because he is playing probably the best football of his career, but his team sucks. It sucks, but that is it. And I want to also say Sam Darnold can be thrown in there as well. But for now, Joe Burrow. Offensive Rookie, Jaden Daniels, but you can maybe argue Malik Neighbors, but no, you can't. Jaden Daniels is the easy Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's even in the MVP talks. And Defensive Rookie of the Year, I have to also say Jared Verse. There hasn't been a lot of great defensive rookie presence this year. Jared Verse is definitely the best of it so far. Rams defensive end nose tackle kind of guy. He played nose tackle end at Florida State when he was with them, but he has 3.5 sacks this year, a forced fumble, and 20 solo tackles. You could maybe argue Liatu Latu. Sorry. I know. He's a dog at UCLA, but he's got not very similar stats, but he has 2 forced fumbles, so you could kind of argue that. But no, I think so far it's Jared Verse. But those are our award ceremony for halfway through the season. Let's get into our games of the week and our quick picks to round this out. So far, our quick picks, I've been 19 for 27. James has been 18 for 27.
I caught up a little.
You're catching up because you said Chiefs, Jets, and I tried to be different. I don't know. But my game of the week this week, one that I think a lot of people are overlooking, is Steelers, Commanders. Those are 2 teams where I would have been like, wow, I don't care about this game at the beginning of the season. And now I'm like, wow, these are 2 top 10 teams going at it. I'm very excited to see how this plays out. Jaden Daniels playing a very, very good defense, and I want to see how this plays out. What's your game of the week, James?
My game of the week, I think this could easily turn into a shootout. It's Monday Night Football, Dolphins, Rams.
Okay, yeah.
I've got the Dolphins in that one just because they played so well last week. However, playing the Rams at the wrong time. The Rams have definitely turned it on. They could expose them running the ball. They've got Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua back. I think the Dolphins win this game if it turns into a shootout, though.
Yeah, I like that. I do. But let's get into our quick picks here to round it out. Thursday Night Football, we got the Bengals, Ravens, another divisional. This was a great game last time they played. You have who?
I have the Bengals. I think they're so salty. They lost that game in Cincinnati last time, and it was a game they should have won. They circled this game on their schedule as soon as they lost the last one. So I think this is their revenge game. It's their chance to prove that they can be as good and beat a team like the Ravens. So I've got Joe Burrow taking down the Ravens.
Yeah, I think the Bengals need this one if they want to prove that they're a good team this year. But I'm taking the Ravens anyway. Ravens have been so good. I think they'll look to just repeat what they did last time, honestly. But let's move on to the Munich game. Here we go. Panthers-Giants.
What a terrible game.
Really bad, yeah. And it sucks because Bayern Munich has such a beautiful stadium. But anyway, Giants-Panthers. I'm taking the Panthers. Who you got this week?
I'm gonna pick the Giants.
Okay.
For really the only reason is that I kind of wanted it to go hand in hand with my starts this week. I had Tyrone Tracy starting, so why not pick the Giants against the Panthers in this matchup? Now, a nice little 1 p.m. game. Your game of the week.
Yeah, I'm taking the Commanders for Steelers Commanders, though. I am, and I know you want to say the same thing. Right?
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Commanders as well. However, the Steelers could easily make this interesting.
They could.
If they get Jaden Daniels running around back there a little more than he should be, T.J. Watt chase him around with a baseball bat. They could force him to throw some turnovers, fumble maybe. I think the defense has to get this started though if the Steelers are going to win this
100%.
game.
100%. Another 1 p.m. game because there weren't really any good 4 p.m. games. Sorry, but we're gonna roll with Buccaneers 49ers, and I like the Niners in this one actually. The Bucs have just struggled recently.
And I'm gonna have to agree. I'm gonna go the Niners as well. I would pick the Bucs if they're fully healthy, but again they don't have all the weapons and. Baker Mayfield, I think, will definitely make it interesting. He has so far, even with the short end of the stick. But CMC comes back, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Right.
And the Bucs defense is not equipped to deal with that.
No.
So I think this could also turn into a blowout if CMC is utilized properly in his comeback.
Right. And for Sunday Night Football, we had the Lions-Texans, which would have been a good game if the Texans really had their receivers. But I think right now, it's a pretty one-sided game right now. Lions, are you saying Lions?
I'm going to have the Lions,
Yeah,
too.
they're just so dominant. I don't think there's any way you can really stop them. And to wrap it up here, Monday Night Football, Dolphins, Rams. This is your game of the week, so you can start. Who you taking? You said...
I got the Dolphins in a shootout. If they make it a shootout, I think they have a chance. But if this game... I think they have to establish running the ball, and then from there they can push it down the field. But
they got to get Tyreek going as well.
They got to keep up with the Rams. I mean, think about how good the Rams can be. So, who do you have in this game?
Yeah, I want the Rams.
Okay.
I think they're going to win this offensive shootout. No defense in this game. but I do think that the Rams will take it. They're hot right now. Puka Nacua is coming back off an ejection, and he's going to light it up.
That's true. Maybe he could just light it up
right,
he gets
exactly.
ejected. Yeah.
All right, well, that will do it for us here in the studio. Thank you all for listening again. We will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Peace.